I'll have 9 years sober this July, you guys. July 13th of 2015 is when I finally decided to change my life. So let's talk about it. What's up, you guys? My name's Nicole Pludre. I'm a person in long-term recovery, and I love talking about drugs, addiction, recovery, prison, my life, and my dogs. Where'd he go? Where you at, Rocky? There he is, talking to Paco, and so much more. And so many of you guys have been following me since 2018. That's when I first started making content online, or at least content that I left up. I actually started making content online back in 2016 on Facebook. And I'll never forget it. I was a guest in a Facebook recovery group. They asked me to come share my story. I came and shared my story, and at the end of my story, I talked about getting on suboxone. All of a sudden, the live stream was cut short, and I got a message in my DMs telling me basically that they couldn't believe that I was online telling people that I was on suboxone, that if they had known I was on suboxone, they would have never asked me to share my story, and that I might as well be on heroin. And I remember that was the first time that anybody asked me to tell my story, besides the treatment center that I had graduated from. And I was devastated. I was embarrassed. I had this immense feeling of shame come over me, like I was still in active addiction. And I remember thinking, I will never, ever make another video again. I will never talk about my recovery again. That's it. That's all, right? About 6 months went by, and I kept watching YouTube videos and watching other people share their stories. And I was like, there's got to be a place for me. There's got to be a place for somebody to share about a different path to recovery. That's not abstinence. That's not AA. That's not NA. And there wasn't a lot of men and women speaking up and speaking out and being proud of themselves for being on suboxone or methadone or whatever MAT treatment they chose to be on, right? There was a lot of shame connected to these medications. People telling people that they were on liquid handcuffs, like people didn't want to admit that they were on suboxone or methadone, especially when I first started getting sober back in 2015. So I was like, there's got to be a space for us. So there wasn't one. So I made one. And I started sharing my journey being on suboxone and being sober. And my journey has not been a straight, even road. I have been on suboxone since 2015. In 2021, I jumped off of it. I tapered down to 0.25 of a milligram, and I jumped off, and I stayed off for a little over 30 days. I did fine coming off of it. My withdrawal wasn't super bad, but my mental health was shot. And I made a rash decision deciding to get off of it, so I decided to get back on a month or so later after getting off of it. And I've been back on it ever since, only at a very small dose. I'm only on 0.5 milligram to 1/4 of 1 milligram. A lot of people say, well, why did you even bother getting back on if you're only going to take 0.5 milligram, right? Because of my mental health. Because that is how much this medication affects my mental health and helps me with my mental health. Not just my mental health, but it has plays a huge part with that. It also helps me so much to not think about all drugs. I was addicted to multiple substances. I was addicted to methamphetamine, cocaine, benzos, and opioids. Okay? This medication has helped me in all aspects of my life with all of my addictions. Okay? And so many of you guys have followed me since 2018, and I just want to say that I really appreciate it. I really appreciate you guys' support, and I will always be honest and share my journey. I'm at a point in my journey now where I've been on suboxone, like I said, for almost 9 years. I'm also on a health journey. I have lost almost 30 pounds, okay? And I'm trying very hard to change my life around my health, to get in shape, to get really healthy. Not just my mind healthy, but my body and my spirit as well. And so in the future, do I see myself staying on suboxone for 20 years? I don't see that. But I'm not ready to jump off yet. I'm right in the middle of changing my life again, making huge changes in my life centered around my diet and exercise. And these are changes that I have spent the last 9 years eating unhealthy and turning myself into a diabetic in recovery. So many people don't come on here and talk about the addictions that you can have that are not drugs, because we're taught in these programs, as long as we don't pick up that day, that was a great day, as long as you don't drink or drug, right? But what if we're killing ourselves with sugar, with food? That's what happened to me. I would tell myself, at least I'm not shooting meth. And I got myself in a rut where I was no longer challenging myself to do better and be better, because I was just saying things like, well, at least I'm not on meth. At least I'm not shooting Roxy's. And I wasn't giving my all to my life. And I ended up becoming super unhealthy and super overweight. So, there's so many things I can come on here and talk about online, but I'm really just trying to share my journey with you guys organically and honestly. I will always be 100% honest and transparent about my journey. I have stayed sober these whole 9 years. I haven't had any relapses. I have shared every bit of my journey, the ups and downs and all arounds. And I just want to give a huge shout out to those of you guys who have stuck with me all this time and who have supported me all these years, because it means the world to me. Me making my social media was never about me becoming famous or making a bunch of money off you guys or anything like that. The reason why I created my social media channels was because there wasn't anyone like me talking about being sober and utilizing medication-assisted treatment. And I felt alone. I felt like nobody else was like me. And so I created my social media platforms to be a voice and a connection for people in the MAT community. And I will continue to share my MAT journey and be a voice and help represent people who feel not represented, who feel looked down on, who feel judged for their pathway. The days of abstinence-only treatment and recovery are dead and gone. There are so many amazing options out there today that can help you get sober, and you don't have to struggle. You don't have to white knuckle it. You don't have to barely be hanging on. You don't have to torture yourself anymore like that. There's so much help out there today. So no matter what anyone tells you, if you're on suboxone, if you're on methadone, if you're on Sublocade, if you're on medical marijuana, if you're on kratom, if you're on Vivitrol, if you're taking medication because you got ADHD and it's helping you in your life and you're able to live a healthy, productive life, I 100% support you. And I am proud of you. And I see you, and I see your recovery, and your recovery is valid. Any person that is going to take time out of their day to try and try to devalue your recovery, that says so much more about them than it does about you. Focus on the people who are lifting you up, who are encouraging you on your recovery journey, and leave those other motherfuckers in the dust. Because that's what I've done. All those years of people judging me for being on Suboxone. Do you know how many of those people who actually said some fucked up shit to my face are still alive? A lot of them overdosed and died. And I'm still standing, sober, on Suboxone after almost 9 years.